You ever wonder why some people seem to move through life with this quiet, unshakable discipline, while you keep restarting the same goals every Monday? Why they look like they know something you don't? Here's the uncomfortable truth. There is something they know, and once you hear it, you'll never look at discipline the same way again. And if you click this video because you're tired of feeling stuck, tired of breaking promises to yourself, and tired of watching other people lap you in life, then you're in the right place. This video will show you the truth about discipline that nobody told you, and by the end, you'll understand exactly why your life looks the way it does, and more importantly, how to take control of it starting today. Most people don't realize this, but discipline isn't lost in one dramatic moment. It dies in tiny choices you think don't matter. Every time you wake up and hit snooze, every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," every time you avoid the hard thing because it's uncomfortable, you're silently training your brain to accept weakness as normal. And the scary part is, life lets you get away with it at first. Nothing explodes, nothing collapses, nothing screams at you. Your life just slowly becomes smaller. You stop dreaming as big. You stop believing in yourself. You stop trusting your own word. Discipline isn't about being strict. It's about proving to yourself that you can rely on you. And when you break that trust, you don't just lose progress, you lose identity. That's the real danger. Not the missed workout, not the wasted morning, the slow erosion of who you could have been. Because if you don't control your discipline, your comfort will control your life. And comfort has only one goal: to keep you exactly where you are forever. Most people think they fail at discipline because they don't try hard enough. They tell themselves, "I'm just lazy," or "I need more motivation." But that's not the real problem. The real problem lives deeper, inside the identity you carry, the invisible story you keep repeating to yourself about who you are. You can force discipline for a day, maybe a week, but if your identity still echoes, "This isn't who I am," the old habits will always drag you back. That's why discipline feels like pushing a boulder uphill, because you're carrying the weight of an outdated version of yourself. Think about it like this. Imagine a person who decides they want to start running every morning. On day one, they wake up early, full of motivation. Day two, they're a little tired, but still pushing. But by day 6, the old identity returns. You're not a morning person. You've never been consistent. Missing one day won't hurt, and suddenly they're back where they started. The failure didn't happen on day 6, it happened years ago, in the moment they started believing a story that didn't serve them. And here's the part no one tells you. Your brain is addicted to what feels familiar, not what feels good. If you spent years being inconsistent, then inconsistency becomes home. Comfort becomes home. Quitting becomes home. So when you try to build discipline, your brain panics because you're rewriting a story it's lived in for too long. That's why most people fail. They're trying to build a disciplined life while still seeing themselves as undisciplined. It's like planting a seed in soil that refuses to grow anything new. The truth is, the enemy of discipline isn't your distractions. It's the version of you that's afraid to disappear. The version that whispers excuses because it doesn't want to die. And until you let go of that identity, until you stop seeing yourself as the person who always comes up short, discipline will always feel temporary. But once you update who you believe you are, discipline stops being a fight. It becomes your default. Most people walk around thinking discipline is just motivation with extra steps. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect mindset, believing discipline will magically appear when life finally feels right. But motivation is like weather. It changes every hour. Some days it's calm, other days it's storming, and if you build your life on it, everything you do becomes unpredictable. That's why you start strong and fall off, not because you're weak, but because you built discipline on a foundation that couldn't hold it. Imagine someone who decides they want to change their life. On the first day, they feel unstoppable. Day 2, they're still going. But by day 4, the excitement fades. They look in the mirror and think, "I don't feel like it today." So they skip. That one skip becomes 2, then 3, and soon enough, they're back at 0. The mistake didn't happen on day 6, it tied discipline to emotion, and emotions are unreliable.
They come and go. They rise and fall. You can't build a new life on something that shifts so easily. Now think of the person who succeeds, the one who changes everything. What's different about them? It's not motivation, it's not luck, it's not talent. It's their identity. They don't see waking up early, going to the gym, studying, or grinding as tasks. They see them as who they are. They don't say, "I'll try to be disciplined." They say, "This is what I do." And when an action becomes part of your identity, you don't negotiate with it. You don't delay it. You don't talk yourself out of it. You just do it. The same way you brush your teeth without thinking or tie your shoes without hesitation. Here's the twist most people never realize. Discipline isn't an action. It's a self-image. The moment you start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who executes, someone who honors their commitments, your behavior begins to match. It has to. Your brain hates being out of alignment with who you believe you are. So instead of relying on motivation to push you, your identity pulls you. That's why disciplined people seem calm, almost effortless. They're not fighting themselves anymore. They're living in alignment with who they decided to become.
And once that shift happens, everything becomes simpler. Not easier, simpler. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" because the answer doesn't matter anymore. The question becomes, "Is this who I am?" And if the answer is yes, you act. No hesitation, no debate, no negotiating with the old version of yourself. Most people think the consequences of lacking discipline show up dramatically, like losing a job, failing a goal, or hitting rock bottom. But that's not how life works. Life doesn't punish you loudly, it punishes you quietly. It lets you slide just enough that you don't notice the damage you're doing. You skip a day, then two, then a week, and somehow it feels harmless. But in the background, your future is shrinking. Your potential is fading. You're getting comfortable with the version of yourself that settles. Imagine someone who once dreamed big. They said they'd get in shape, start that business, learn that skill, rewrite their story. But every time it got uncomfortable, they backed off. "Not today. I'll start soon. I'm too stressed right now." And every delay felt small, forgivable, even logical. But one day, without noticing, years passed. Their dream didn't die because it was impossible. It died because they never stayed disciplined long enough for it to grow. That's how most lives fall apart. Not through a single failure, but through a collection of tiny, unnoticed moments of quitting. And here's the part that stings. You don't lose discipline in one big decision. You lose it in the moments where you think it doesn't matter. The mornings you hit snooze, the workouts you skip, the extra hour on your phone, the promises you break to yourself. Each time you choose comfort, you're training your brain to fear effort. You're teaching yourself that avoiding discomfort is normal, that staying the same is acceptable. And slowly, your confidence decays, your ambition softens, your self-belief evaporates. There's something even more dangerous. You start lowering your standards without realizing it. Things you once said you'd never tolerate become your new normal. Missing deadlines becomes, "It's just how I am." Not taking care of your body becomes, "I'll fix it later." Living on autopilot becomes, "It's not that bad." You begin adjusting your life downward to match your lack of discipline. And the future version of you, the one who could have been more, starts slipping away. The real cost of not being disciplined isn't failure, it's regret. It's waking up one day realizing you could have changed your life if you had just stayed consistent. It's knowing your future self deserved better, but your present self kept choosing comfort. And the scariest part, if you don't change now, you'll settle into a life that looks nothing like the one you once imagined. Most people think discipline is built through big dramatic changes, like waking up at 4 a.m., going to the gym twice a day, or cutting out every bad habit overnight. But that's exactly why they fail. Discipline doesn't come from overwhelming yourself. It comes from the smallest actions repeated consistently, even when they feel insignificant. Real discipline is quiet. It grows in the background.
And it begins with one simple promise: I will do one uncomfortable thing every day. Think about how you start your morning. When your alarm goes off and you hit snooze, it feels harmless, just 10 more minutes. But what you don't realize is that you're practicing the art of breaking your own word before the day even begins. Now imagine doing the opposite, getting up the moment the alarm rings, even if you don't want to. It seems small, almost trivial, but your brain learns something powerful. When I say I'll do something, I do it. That one habit alone can change the entire tone of your life. Let me tell you a simple story. Imagine a person who decides to transform their life, but instead of making a huge list of goals, they start with just one rule: never walk past something out of place without fixing it. At first, it's annoying. A book left on the table, a plate in the sink, shoes near the door. But after a few days, something shifts. Their environment becomes cleaner, their mind becomes lighter, and their actions become sharper. Not because cleaning is magical, but because they're constantly sending a message to their brain: I take responsibility, I act, I follow through. This is how identity is built, through repetition, not intensity. You don't become disciplined by doing one big thing one time. You become disciplined by doing one small thing 1,000 times. And the more small promises you keep, the more your brain starts trusting you. Suddenly, the things that once felt impossible, waking up early, studying for hours, grinding consistently, don't feel like battles anymore. They feel like normal. And here's the part everyone misses. Discipline doesn't get easier because the tasks get easier. Discipline gets easier because you get stronger. Your mind stops resisting effort. Your emotions stop controlling your decisions. Your old identity stops having power over you. You begin to crave structure, crave progress, crave the feeling of following through. That's when discipline stops being a chore and becomes who you are. So don't underestimate the small habits: waking up on time, making your bed, cleaning your space, finishing what you start, choosing the hard option just once a day. These little moments aren't insignificant. They are shaping your entire character. They are the quiet bricks that build an unbreakable foundation of discipline.
There comes a point in every person's life where they realize something painful. The version of themselves they've been carrying for years is not built for the future they want. The old you, the one who gets distracted easily, who quits when things get uncomfortable, who chooses comfort over growth, has been running the show for far too long. And the truth is, that version didn't appear by accident. It was shaped by fear, by past failures, by environments that rewarded comfort, by a lifetime of choosing the easy path. But if you want a different life, that version cannot survive. Think of it like trying to upgrade a system while running old software. You can build new habits, new dreams, new goals, but if the old identity is still in control, everything crashes eventually. That's why people start strong and fade. It's not because they lack ability. It's because they never let the old identity die. They try to change while still holding on to who they used to be. And that creates a war inside the mind that discipline can't win. Imagine someone standing at the edge of the life they want. They can see it. Stronger, more confident, more focused, more disciplined. But behind them stands the old self, whispering the same excuses it always has. Take a break. You can start tomorrow. You've never been consistent anyway. That voice isn't just a bad habit, it's the identity that's been steering your life. And here's the frightening part. That voice feels familiar, so the brain trusts it. Familiarity is powerful, even when it destroys you. But here's the shift. Growth begins the moment you decide that the old version of you is no longer allowed to speak. When you stop negotiating with your weaknesses, when you stop defending your excuses, when you stop carrying the identity that keeps losing.
Discipline requires a funeral, a moment where you bury the version of you that settled, that feared change, that avoided responsibility. That old self will scream, resist, and cling to you because it knows once you let it go, your entire life will transform. And when you finally detach from that identity, when you stop saying, "I've always been like this," and start saying, "This is who I am now," something powerful happens. The world doesn't change immediately, you do. Your decisions get sharper, your standards rise, your tolerance for your own excuses disappears. You act with purpose rather than emotion. You start doing what the future version of you would do, not what the old version wants. This is the turning point. This is where discipline becomes natural, not because life gets easier, but because the old you that feared difficulty no longer exists. Destroying the old you is not about becoming someone different. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be, without the fear, without the hesitation, without the dead weight of past identities pulling you down. Most people believe their life will get better eventually, as if improvement is something that just happens with time. But time doesn't fix anything. Time only repeats whatever you're doing right now. And that's the question you need to pause and ask yourself honestly. What if nothing changes? Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. What if you carry the same habits for another year, another 3 years, another decade? It's uncomfortable to imagine, but that discomfort is exactly why you need to imagine it. Picture yourself 5 years from today, living the consequences of the same choices you're making right now, the same lack of discipline, the same procrastination, the same comfort addiction. You're not failing dramatically, you're just slowly drifting into a smaller, more limited version of your life. The dreams you once believed in start to feel unrealistic. Your ambition fades. You stop trying, not because you can't succeed, but because you no longer believe the effort will matter. That's how life punishes you. Quietly, gradually, invisibly. Let me paint you a simple scene. Imagine one morning, years from now, you wake up, and as you sit on the edge of your bed, a realization hits you, not suddenly, but with the weight of every delayed decision you've ever made. You're not living the life you wanted, not because it was impossible, but because you kept putting change off until later, and later never arrived. That's the moment people feel regret. Not regret from the risks they took, but from the risks they never dared to try. And here's the part that should shake you. The scariest thing isn't losing your potential. It's getting comfortable losing it. It's adjusting your dreams downward because you don't trust yourself to follow through. It's telling yourself, maybe this is just who I am, because believing in more would force you to change. That is the silent tragedy of an undisciplined life. Not the failure itself, but the acceptance of a life beneath your own capability. But feeling this discomfort right now is good. It means you're aware. It means something inside you hasn't given up. Because the moment you truly understand what's at stake, not in theory, but in reality, you stop waiting for discipline to appear and you start creating it. You start moving with urgency. You start acting like your future depends on the choices you make today. Because it does.
Most people imagine discipline as this intense battle, a daily war between who they are and who they want to be. But in reality, the people who appear the most disciplined rarely feel like they're fighting at all. They're not superhuman. They're not naturally strong. They've simply built a system, a loop that quietly carries them forward, even on the days when motivation disappears. And this loop starts with something deceptively small, a promise. Think about a young man named Aaron. For years, he struggled with procrastination, guilt, and the constant feeling that he was failing his own potential. One day, after yet another night of wasting time online, he made a small, almost laughable promise to himself. I will study for 5 minutes every morning. Not an hour, not a whole chapter, just 5 minutes. But for the first time in his life, it wasn't a fantasy goal. It was a promise he could actually keep. The next morning, he did it. He sat down, opened his notes, and studied for exactly 5 minutes. And that simple action created something powerful, a tiny win. It didn't change his life instantly, but it changed his chemistry. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, self-respect. The quiet pride of someone who finally honored his own word. That small emotion did something even stronger. It shaped his identity. For the first time, he didn't feel like a failure pretending to be consistent. He felt like someone capable of showing up. And that identity created the next action, not because he forced it, but because he didn't want to break who he was becoming. 5 minutes soon became 10. 10 became 20. Within weeks, he wasn't fighting with discipline. He was pulled forward by momentum. The loop had activated. Promise, action, win, identity, next action. This is how winners operate, not through impossible bursts of effort, but through a self-reinforcing cycle that grows stronger each time you repeat it. The reason they don't quit isn't because they're tougher or smarter. It's because quitting would feel like betraying their new identity. Discipline becomes the path of least resistance. Consistency becomes natural, and momentum becomes inevitable. And when you understand this loop, when you intentionally build it, you stop trying to force discipline into your life. You create a system where discipline flows through your life. You don't wake up wondering if you'll be productive today. You wake up knowing exactly who you are. Most people spend years of their life living in a waiting room, waiting for a sign, waiting for motivation, waiting for the right timing, the right opportunity, the right version of themselves that finally has everything figured out. They sit there hoping that one day something external will push them into the life they dream about. But that day never comes, not because they're unlucky, but because life was never designed to hand discipline to you. It's built to reveal who you become when there's no one left to rely on but yourself. Imagine someone named Liam. He grew up thinking success would happen eventually, as if his goals were on some conveyor belt slowly moving toward him. Every time he messed up his routines, skipped his responsibilities, or fell back into old habits, he comforted himself by saying, "I'll start fresh next week, next month, next year." But one night, while scrolling through his phone, he came across a quote that hit him harder than anything had in years. "Nothing changes if you don't." At first he laughed it off, but then something strange happened. He couldn't forget it. It followed him into the shower, into bed, into the next morning. He realized he was waiting for a future version of himself to do all the work, while the present version kept falling behind. And that realization, that painful, uncomfortable truth, was the most empowering moment of his life. Not because it made him feel strong, but because it made him feel responsible. For the first time ever, he stopped pretending that someone else was supposed to build his future. He stopped imagining a miracle moment where everything magically aligned. He stopped blaming circumstances, laziness, and bad luck. And when all those excuses were stripped away, something powerful remained: control. This is the shift that separates dreamers from doers. When you stop waiting for rescue and finally take ownership, your entire psychology transforms. Suddenly, discomfort feels like a path, not a punishment. Suddenly, consistency feels like freedom, not restriction. Suddenly, discipline stops being something you try to build and becomes something you protect because you finally understand what it's worth. This is the moment where your old identity dies and a new one is born. The version of you who shows up not because it's easy, but because they've accepted the truth most people run from. No one is coming, so you must go first. And once you cross that point, once you take that responsibility, you become unstoppable. Not because you never fail, but because you no longer quit when you do. If you're still here, then you already know the truth. Discipline isn't something you watch videos about. It's something you step into the moment the screen goes dark. This is the point where most people nod their head, feel inspired, and then go right back to the life that's been holding them down. but you are not most people. You wouldn't still be listening if something inside you wasn't already shifting. So here's your final challenge. Don't let this become another temporary burst of motivation that fades by morning. Take one small action the second this video ends. One micro step that confirms your new identity. Because once you move, momentum moves with you. And if you want more guidance, more structure, more fire to keep you from slipping back into the old patterns, the next video is waiting for you right now. Click it. Continue the momentum. And don't stop, because the disciplined version of you has already started building the life your future self will thank you for.